Hello everyone, and welcome to this next video in my IFA coverage of 2014, and I'm going to give you my first opinions and impressions of all of the devices that Sony announced at its IFA press conference in Berlin yesterday. Sony announced a range of different devices, and I'm going to talk to you about each of them and what I think that each of them offers to you as a consumer, and which ones I'm particularly interested in myself. So this is going to be a long list, so I apologise if you don't like lists in videos, but this is what Sony announced. They announced the Xperia Z3, the Xperia Z3 Compact, the Xperia Z3 Tablet Compact. They announced the Sony Smartwatch with powered by Android Wear, and they also announced the Smartband Talk as well. I'm now going to tell you what I think of each of these devices and what they have to offer to people. The Xperia Z3 is similar to the Xperia Z2, which has only been on the market for 6 months, but what the Xperia Z3 does is it takes the Xperia Z2, it refines it, it makes it much more elegant and much more premium in a way, and I think that that's going to continue to be Sony's strategy. It wants to release the phone every 6 months so it can remain competitive with its competitors, and I think that the Z3, as Sony put it themselves, is the highest distillation of every technology that Sony works in, and they've made it into one device, which is the Xperia Z3. The Xperia Z3 Compact is a smaller version of the Xperia Z3, and unlike other mini phones, which I did a video on, and I'll leave that link in the description of what the problem is with other mini phones, Sony has decided to make their compact, or as other manufacturers call it, mini phone, have the same specifications roughly as the phone that it's the mini of. Also, the Xperia Z3 Compact Tablet is another interesting device. It's an 8-inch tablet, and I think it is one of Sony's first small tablets, and it's very, very attractive. It's sort of a Sony version of the iPad mini in terms of looks and aesthetics. I'm not saying it is like the iPad mini with Retina display. I'm just saying that that's what Sony's sort of aiming this device to compete against, because it's an 8-inch tablet and it looks very, very, very elegant, and it's very thin. The Sony Smartwatch 3 is Sony's first Android Wear smartwatch, and that's another device that's quite interesting and intriguing. Sony was one of the first companies to introduce the concept of smartwatches to the wider public. They released 2 smartwatches beforehand, running a proprietary version of Android. It was similar to the Android that you get on your phones. It wasn't a dedicated smartwatch piece of software like Android Wear is. And I think that Sony has decided that it wants to gain a foothold in Android Wear and try to show itself as that it was the one that tried to do this first before anyone else, which is, you know, they are meant to be, they should be commended for that, because it's an intriguing thing. The Smartband Talk is quite similar to the Smartband that was announced at CES 2014 earlier this year, but what Sony has done is that they've added a few extra features. They've made it a bit more user friendly. They've added a e-paper display where you can interact with it a bit more and gain a bit more information. You can also make phone calls, hence the talk part of it. And then for the budget orientated customer, Sony announced the Xperia E3, which Sony says will be priced very aggressively and will be pushed as the most affordable Sony smartphone to date, which I think is an interesting thing for them to come out and say, because they clearly want to try and get in that affordable price range, particularly where the Moto G, the Moto E and the Nokias currently lie. And I think what Sony has done at this year's IFA 2014, they've come out with all guns blazing. They've not held anything back, and they've tried to show that they're still relevant and that they're pushing as many products as they can to compete on as many different levels, and all of the devices, particularly, well, all of the smartphone and tablet devices they announced will work with a PS4, which I think is interesting as a second display, because Microsoft hasn't even come up with anything that's anywhere near as integrated with the Xbox One on their Windows Phone platform. And I think it will be interesting to see how Microsoft and now Nokia, which is part of Microsoft building their phone devices, how they're going to combat that Sony strategy of incorporating their devices together to make it a more unified ecosystem. But as I said, this was just a quick video of me giving my opinions and thoughts of all of the devices that Sony announced at IFA 2014. I now want to know what you think about all of the devices that Sony announced. I'll leave pictures of all the devices in this video so that you can see what they look like, and I want you to tell me, are you going to be getting any of these devices? Are you interested in any of them? Are you going to actually get any of them? And Sony hasn't stated any fixed release dates yet, but it's saying September to October 2014 will be the release date for most of the devices they announced. And once again, if you liked this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, please also subscribe to my channel. And if you want to follow me on any social networks, I'll leave these in the description below. And I'd like to thank you very much for watching this video, and goodbye.